I walked through my front door and saw my 7-year-old son sitting on the stairs with bruises all over his face. And our housekeeper had her hands on him. My heart stopped. I was about to fire her on the spot, maybe even call the police. But then my son said 5 words that changed everything. Dad, she was teaching me. Teaching him what? Sign language. For a deaf boy at school that nobody would talk to. I had no idea that my anger in that moment almost destroyed the one person who was saving my son's life. And I definitely didn't know that 3 months later, I'd be standing in front of a school board fighting to save a child I'd never met. This is a story about what happens when we judge too quickly, and what miracles can happen when we finally learn to see. Welcome to Reality Untold Stories. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Part 1. The Misunderstanding. My name is David Harrison, and I'm 42 years old. 3 years ago, my wife Catherine died from cancer. Since then, I've been raising our son, 7-year-old Tyler, alone. Or at least I thought I was raising him. Turns out I was just surviving and Tyler was doing the same. I hired Rebecca Chen 2 weeks before everything changed. She was quiet, professional, and came with excellent references. She'd worked at schools for deaf children in Chicago for 5 years. I didn't think much about that detail when I hired her. I just needed someone to watch Tyler while I worked 12-hour days at the law firm, trying to keep my life from completely falling apart. That Tuesday evening, I came home exhausted like always. My briefcase felt like it weighed 100 pounds. My head ached from staring at contracts all day. All I wanted was to collapse on the couch and maybe see Tyler for 20 minutes before he went to bed. But when I opened the front door, I froze. Tyler sat on the 3rd step of our staircase. His face was a mess. Dark purple bruises covered his left cheek. A nasty scrape ran along his temple. His eye was swollen, the skin around it turning yellowish green. And Rebecca was kneeling in front of him, both of her hands cupping his face, her fingers moving in strange patterns I didn't understand. My briefcase hit the floor with a bang. "What are you doing? Get away from him right now." Rebecca's hands dropped immediately. Tyler flinched, his whole body jerking back like I'd hit him. That flinch hurt worse than anything else. My own son was afraid of my voice. "Tyler, come here. Now." My voice came out sharp, angry, protective. Tyler hesitated. Just for a second, but I saw it. He looked at Rebecca, then at me, then slowly stood up and walked over. I pulled him close, my hands running over his face, his arms, checking for more injuries. My heart was racing so hard I could hear it in my ears. "Did she do this to you?" I asked, staring at those bruises. Tyler shook his head quickly. "No, Dad. She was helping me." "Helping you?" I turned to Rebecca, and I know the look I gave her was terrible. Cold. Accusatory. "My son has bruises all over his face, and you are doing what, exactly?" Rebecca's voice stayed calm, but I could see her hands shaking. "Mr. Harrison, if you would just listen for a moment." "Listen to what?" My voice rose. "You've been in my house for 2 weeks, and I walk in to find my son hurt, and your hands all over him. What am I supposed to think?" "She was teaching me," Tyler said, his voice cracking, "how to talk to Jamie. He's deaf, and nobody at school understands him. Nobody even tries. And he pushed me last week because..." I froze. "Wait. Someone at school did this to you?" Tyler nodded, looking down at his feet. I turned back to Rebecca, my jaw clenched so tight it hurt. "And you knew about this?" She lifted her chin, meeting my eyes directly. "He asked me not to tell you. That's not your decision to make." The words came out like ice. Silence fell between us, heavy and suffocating. The air felt thick with things unsaid, with anger and fear and misunderstanding. Finally, Rebecca spoke quietly. "You're right, Mr. Harrison. I'm just the help." She turned and walked out of the room. Just like that. No argument, no defense, nothing. I stood there with Tyler clinging to my leg, and a sick feeling started spreading through my stomach. Something about this was wrong. Something about my reaction was wrong. But I was too angry, too scared, too protective to see it clearly yet. Tyler looked up at me with tears in his eyes. Dad, you don't understand. Jamie needs. Not now, buddy. Just not now. But the truth was, I didn't understand anything. Not what was really happening. Not what Tyler needed. Not who Rebecca really was. And definitely not that I had just pushed away the one person who was actually seeing my son when I was too blind to look. That night, after I put Tyler to bed, I sat alone in the dark living room. Tyler had tried to explain about this Jamie kid, about sign language, about Rebecca's brother who was deaf. But I was too angry to really hear him. Too hurt that he'd kept secrets from me. Too terrified that I'd almost lost him to something I didn't understand. It wasn't until I heard Rebecca moving around upstairs, packing her things, that I realized I might have made the biggest mistake of my life. I found Rebecca in the small bedroom off the kitchen, the one that came with the job. Her suitcase lay open on the bed, neatly folded clothes stacked inside. She was placing books into the bag when I knocked on the doorframe. Rebecca, I'll be gone by morning, she said without looking at me. Her voice was steady, but I could hear the hurt underneath. I'll leave instructions for Tyler's meals and his doctor's information. Wait, please. I stepped into the room. Tyler told me about Jamie, about the sign language. Her hands stilled on a sweater she was folding, but she didn't turn around. I jumped to conclusions. I continued. I saw those bruises and I thought, I'm sorry. Rebecca finally turned to face me. Her eyes were red, but she wasn't crying. She just looked tired. Tired in a way that went deeper than one bad day. You don't need to apologize for protecting your son, Mr. Harrison. That's what fathers do. I wasn't protecting him. I was accusing you. You saw what you saw. I understand. Do you? I leaned against the doorframe. Because I'm trying to figure out why I reacted that way, and I'm not proud of what I'm finding. Rebecca's shoulders tensed. What do you mean? I took a breath. Would I have reacted the same way if you looked different? If you were older or white or... Mr. Harrison. David. Please. Just call me David. She sat down on the edge of the bed, her hands folded in her lap. I've worked in a lot of homes. I know how this works. You hired me to clean and watch Tyler while you work. You didn't hire me to care about him. But you do care. Yes. Her voice cracked slightly. I do. Why? Rebecca looked down at her hands for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely above a whisper. I had a younger brother. His name was David, like yours, actually. He was born profoundly deaf. Growing up, I watched the world treat him like he was broken. Teachers gave up on him before they even tried. Kids avoided him at lunch. Parents complained that he was disruptive when really he was just trying to communicate the only way he knew how. She wiped her eyes quickly. He'd come home crying because nobody wanted to be his friend. Nobody wanted to try to understand him. And I was just a kid myself, so I didn't know how to fix it. I just knew it was wrong. Where is he now? I asked quietly. He died 4 years ago. Car accident. The other driver ran a red light. A tear slid down her cheek. When Tyler came to me asking how to talk to Jamie, all I could see was David. All I could see was a chance to do for someone else's brother what I wished the whole world had done for mine. My throat felt tight. Rebecca, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. I knew what I was doing when I taught Tyler without asking you first, she said, standing up and reaching for her suitcase. I knew it could cost me this job. But some things matter more than a paycheck. Some things matter more than following rules. She zipped the bag closed with a sharp sound that felt final. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I glanced at the screen, and my stomach dropped. Riverside Elementary School. Tyler's school. Why were they calling at 8 at night? It's Tyler's school, I said, answering quickly. This is David Harrison. The voice on the other end was calm but serious. Mr. Harrison, this is Principal Anderson. I need you to come in first thing tomorrow morning at 8:30. There's been an incident involving your son, and we need to discuss some serious concerns about another student in his class. My heart started racing. What kind of incident? Is Tyler okay? Tyler is fine. But we need to have a conversation about Jamie Torres and the pattern of aggressive behavior we've been documenting. Several parents have complained, and, well, we'll discuss it tomorrow. Please don't be late. The call ended. I looked at Rebecca. She was watching me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Fear, maybe, or resignation. They're going to expel him, she said quietly. Jamie, that's what this meeting is about. How do you know? Because it's happened 4 times already. For different schools in 3 years. This is how it always starts. I thought about Tyler's face, about those bruises, about the way my son had looked at me tonight with desperation and hope mixed together. About a 7-year-old boy who'd learned sign language in secret because he saw someone who needed a friend. Rebecca, I said slowly, don't leave. Not yet. Please. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded, just once, and set her suitcase back on the floor. Neither of us slept much that night. Morning came too fast. I heard Rebecca in the kitchen at 5:30, making coffee like she always did. Tyler came downstairs at 7, quiet and nervous. Am I in trouble? He asked, pushing his cereal around in the bowl.
No, buddy.
I just need to talk to your principal about what happened with Jamie. Tyler's spoon stopped moving. Are they going to kick him out? I don't know. He doesn't have anywhere else to go, Dad. His mom told Rebecca. This is his last chance. Those words hit me hard. Last chance. For an 8-year-old kid. The drive to Riverside Elementary was silent except for Tyler's anxious breathing in the back seat. When we pulled up, I saw him staring at the building like it was a courtroom, and he was the one on trial. Principal Anderson's office smelled like coffee and old paper. She was in her 50s, with gray hair pulled back tight and reading glasses hanging on a chain around her neck. She stood when we entered. Mr. Harrison, thank you for coming. She gestured to a chair. I'll get right to it. We've had multiple complaints about a student in Tyler's class. Jamie Torres has been physical with other children on several occasions. Last week, your son was injured. We have a responsibility to ensure the safety of all our students. I'm aware of what happened, I said carefully. She looked surprised. You are? Because we have no record of you being notified. Tyler didn't report it to his teacher or to the office. He didn't report it because he knew what would happen if he did. Principal Anderson frowned. Mr. Harrison, we have documented 7 incidents this semester alone. Jamie has pushed, hit, and thrown objects at other students. We're not equipped to handle a child with his level of needs. What needs, specifically? He's profoundly deaf. Nonverbal. He has an IEP, but without a full-time interpreter, which frankly we cannot afford, he's struggling significantly. And when he struggles, he becomes aggressive. I leaned forward. Has anyone at this school learned sign language? She blinked. I'm sorry. Sign language. Has any teacher, any administrator, any adult in this building learned how to communicate with Jamie in his language? Principal Anderson's face flushed slightly. Mr. Harrison, we have over 300 students and a limited budget. We simply cannot. My 7-year-old son learned enough sign language in 3 days to try to communicate with his child. 3 days. And you're telling me a school full of educated adults can't figure it out? With all due respect, that's an oversimplification of. The office door opened. A woman stepped in, late 30s, wearing a hospital uniform like she'd just come from a night shift. Her eyes were exhausted, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She looked like she'd been carrying the weight of the world for years. I'm sorry I'm late, she said breathlessly. Traffic was terrible and I couldn't find parking. She stopped when she saw me. Who are you? This is Mr. Harrison, Principal Anderson said. Tyler's father. The woman's face went pale. Oh. She turned to me, and I saw tears already forming in her eyes. I'm so sorry about what happened to your son. I tried to get Jamie to understand, tried to make him apologize, but he doesn't. Her voice broke. He can't express sorry in a way people understand. I stood slowly. You're Jamie's mother. She nodded, gripping her purse strap like it was the only thing holding her together. I know you're angry. Every parent is angry. And I get it. I really do.
But he's not a bad kid.
He's just... Tears spilled down her cheeks. He's just so alone all the time. And right then, looking at this exhausted mother who was fighting a battle she couldn't win alone, I made a decision that would change everything. Mrs. Torres, I said quietly. How old is Jamie? She looked surprised that I was speaking to her instead of yelling. He's 8. 9 in January. And he's been to 4 schools? She nodded, wiping her face with the back of her hand. They all say the same thing. We're not equipped. He needs specialized care. Like my son is a problem that needs to be fixed instead of a child who needs to be understood. Principal Anderson cleared her throat uncomfortably. Mrs. Torres, no one is saying. Yes, you are. Mrs. Torres's voice shook but grew stronger. You've been saying it since October. And now you want me to pull him out so you don't have to deal with him anymore. So you can go back to pretending that inclusion means putting a poster on the wall instead of actually doing the work. The words hung in the air, sharp and true. I thought about Tyler, about Rebecca, about the drawing I'd seen in Tyler's backpack last night when I was looking for permission slips. A picture of 2 boys holding hands. One labeled me and one labeled my friend Jamie. What if someone here learned? I said. Both women turned to stare at me. Learned what? Principal Anderson asked. Sign language. What if someone on your staff learned enough to communicate with Jamie? Mrs. Torres's hand moved to her mouth, her eyes going wide. Principal Anderson shook her head. Mr. Harrison, that would require hiring a specialist, training, resources we simply don't have in the budget. I'll pay for it. Silence crashed into the room like a wave. You'll what? The principal said. I looked directly at Mrs. Torres. I'll fund whatever you need. Training. Interpreter services. Whatever it takes to make this work. Mrs. Torres started crying again, but this time it was different. These weren't tears of exhaustion or defeat. These were tears of hope, maybe for the first time in years. Why would you do that? She whispered. Your son was hurt because of mine. I thought about Tyler's face last night, about the way he'd looked at me with those desperate eyes and said, Dad, Jamie just needs someone to try. Because my son asked me to, I said simply. And because he's right. Principal Anderson sat back in her chair, clearly stunned. This is highly irregular. So is expelling an 8-year-old for being deaf. Her face flushed red. That's not what we're... Isn't it? I kept my voice calm. Because that's exactly what this sounds like. You're removing a child not because he's violent, but because accommodating his disability is inconvenient. Mr. Harrison. There's one condition, I interrupted. The woman who's been teaching my son sign language, Rebecca Chen. She worked at the Chicago School for the Deaf for 5 years. Her brother was deaf. If anyone can help Jamie and train your staff, it's her. She leads this program, or I pull Tyler from this school, and I make sure every parent in this district knows why. Mrs. Torres was staring at me like I'd just offered her oxygen underwater. The woman who signed to Jamie at pickup? The one who called him beautiful. That's her. Jamie came home that day and wouldn't stop smiling. I didn't know why until he showed me the sign she'd made. Nobody. Her voice broke. Nobody has ever just seen him like that. Like he was worth knowing. Principal Anderson folded her hands on her desk. I'll need to discuss this with the school board. This isn't a decision I can make alone. You have until Friday, I said, standing up. After that, I'm enrolling Tyler somewhere that actually believes every child deserves to belong. I turned to Mrs. Torres. Can I meet him? Jamie? She looked shocked. You want to meet my son? If that's okay with you. Why? Because Tyler talks about him every night. And I think... I paused. I think my son has been trying to teach me something I should have learned a long time ago. Mrs. Torres led me down the hallway, past colorful bulletin boards and bright classrooms full of children's voices. We stopped at a door at the end of the hall. Through the small window, I could see a little boy sitting alone at a table, drawing with intense concentration. That's Jamie, she whispered. I watched him through the glass. Dark curly hair, small hands gripping a crayon, the same age as Tyler, but somehow looking much smaller, much more alone. Then Jamie looked up. Our eyes met through the window, and in his face, I saw the same loneliness I'd been seeing in Tyler's eyes for 3 years straight. The same isolation I'd been too buried in my own grief to recognize. "Can I go in?" I asked. Mrs. Torres opened the door quietly. Jamie's head snapped up, his eyes going wide and defensive. He looked at me like I was another adult coming to tell him he didn't belong. His mother signed something while speaking. "This is Tyler's dad, baby. He's a friend." Jamie stared at me for a long moment. Then he pointed at me and made a sign I didn't understand. "He's asking if you're the one who's always too busy," Mrs. Torres translated softly. "Tyler told him about you." The words hit like a punch to the chest. "Yes," I said, then felt stupid because Jamie couldn't hear me. Mrs. Torres signed my answer. Jamie studied me with those serious 8-year-old eyes, then slowly went back to his drawing. I moved closer. "Can I see what you're working on?" He hesitated, then slid the paper toward me. It was a picture of 2 boys. One with dark curly hair, Jamie. One with lighter hair holding a baseball, Tyler. And between them, a woman with kind eyes and dark hair was holding both their hands, smiling. "Is that Rebecca?" I asked, my throat tight. Mrs. Torres looked at the drawing, then at me, tears streaming down her face. "He draws her every single day. She came to pick up once.
Once.
And she's the only adult who's ever tried to talk to him here. The only one who's ever made him feel like he matters." I stared at that picture. At the way Jamie had drawn Rebecca's smile. At the way the 2 boys stood close together, not separated by silence or fear or misunderstanding. "I almost fired her last night," I said quietly. Mrs. Torres's head snapped up. "What?" "I thought she'd hurt Tyler. I saw the bruises and I thought." I couldn't finish. Mrs. Torres stepped closer, her voice shaking. "Mr. Harrison, that woman is the only reason my son still believes the world isn't completely against him. If you fired her—" She stopped, unable to continue. My phone buzzed. I looked at the screen and felt ice flood my veins. It was a text from Rebecca. "I'm sorry. I can't do this anymore. Tell Tyler I'll pray for him every day. Tell him God has a plan for beautiful things." She was leaving.
Right now.
And I had no idea if I could stop her. I don't remember saying goodbye to Mrs. Torres. I just remember running. Through the hallway, past startled teachers, out the front doors of Riverside Elementary into my car. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely get the key in the ignition. I tried calling Rebecca. Straight to voicemail. Tried again. Nothing. "Please, God," I heard myself saying out loud. "Please let her still be there." I hadn't prayed since Catherine's funeral. Hadn't talked to God in 3 years because I was too angry, too hurt, too lost. But the words came anyway, desperate and raw and real. The drive home took 10 minutes. It felt like hours. Her car was still in the driveway when I pulled up. I nearly cried with relief. I ran to the front door, burst through it, and found her standing in the entryway. Suitcase at her feet, keys in her hand,
Coat on.
ready to walk out of our lives forever. "Rebecca." She turned, and I saw that her eyes were red, but her face was calm, resolved. "I left instructions for Tyler's meals in the kitchen," she said quietly. "His doctor's number is on the fridge. He needs his inhaler before. Please don't go." She looked away. "We both know this isn't working, Mr. Harrison." "David. And you're right. It's not working. Because I've been blind and stupid and scared." I took a step closer. "I just met Jamie. I saw the picture he drew of you. And his mother told me." My voice cracked. "She told me you're the only person who's ever made her son feel like he matters." Something flickered across Rebecca's face. "I accused you of the one thing you'd never do," I continued. "I looked at you like you were dangerous when you were the answer to prayers I didn't even know I was supposed to be praying. I don't deserve you staying. I know that. But Tyler does. And Jamie does. And maybe—" I swallowed hard. "Maybe God didn't just put you in this house for my son. Maybe he put you here for all of us. Rebecca's hand trembled on her suitcase handle. I called the school, I said. Told them you'd train their staff. Told them I'd fund everything Jamie needs. But only if you're the one leading it. She stared at me. Why would you do that? Because you were right about everything. About me not seeing Tyler. About me being too buried in my own pain to notice his. About me treating you like you were just. I couldn't finish. Just the help, she said softly. You were never just anything. The front door suddenly swung open. Tyler stood there, backpack on, face pale with fear. Dad, why is Rebecca's suitcase out? We both froze. I thought. Tyler's eyes filled with tears. You said she could stay. You promised she wasn't leaving. I'm not, buddy, Rebecca started. But Tyler turned and ran. Not upstairs. Not to his room. Out the door. Down the driveway. Into the street. Tyler. My heart stopped. A car horn blared. Tires screeched. The car stopped inches from my son. Tyler stood frozen in the middle of the street, chest heaving, tears streaming down his face. I reached him in seconds, dropping to my knees, my hands running over him, checking for injuries that thank God weren't there. Are you hurt? Tyler, are you hurt? He shook his head, sobbing. Rebecca was beside us, breathless. Tyler, baby, what were you thinking? You were leaving. His voice came out in a wail. I saw your suitcase, and I thought if I wasn't here, you'd stay. If I left instead, you wouldn't have to go. The words shattered something inside me. This little boy, my son, was willing to run into traffic if it meant keeping the one person who made him feel safe. Oh, sweetheart. Rebecca pulled Tyler into her arms, holding him tight. That's not how this works. You don't leave. You never leave. I'm staying, okay? I'm staying. Tyler pulled back, his face red and swollen. Promise. Rebecca looked at me. The question in her eyes was clear. Can I promise that? I nodded, my own eyes burning. She's staying, I said firmly. We both promise. The elderly woman from the car finally got out, shaking. Is he all right? Oh my God, I was praying the whole time to be careful. He's okay, I managed to say. Thank you for stopping. She pressed a hand to her chest. God was watching over him today. I looked at Tyler in Rebecca's arms, at the way my son clung to her like she was his lifeline. Maybe God had been watching over all of us all along. We just hadn't been paying attention. That night, after Tyler finally fell asleep, I found Rebecca in the kitchen. She was making tea, moving around like she belonged there. Because she did. Thank you, I said. For staying. For everything. She set a cup in front of me and sat down. I didn't stay for you. I know. I stayed for Tyler. And for Jamie. And because I think God wants me here. Then I'm grateful he does. We sat in silence for a moment. Then Rebecca spoke again. Mrs. Torres called me an hour ago. The school board meeting is tomorrow night. Emergency session. They're voting on whether to keep Jamie enrolled or expel him. My jaw clenched. Then we stopped them.
How?
I looked at her. I don't know yet. But we don't let that little boy lose everything, because adults are too afraid to try. The next evening, the school board meeting was packed. Parents filled every seat, standing room only in the back. I walked in with Rebecca beside me and Tyler holding my hand tight. Mrs. Torres sat in the front row, Jamie pressed against her side, looking terrified. Principal Anderson stood at the podium. While we value inclusion, we must prioritize the safety of all students. Given the documented incidents involving Jamie Torres, the board recommends. I'd like to speak. Every head turned. I walked to the front, Tyler still holding my hand. My name is David Harrison. My son Tyler is in Jamie's class. I paused, looking at all those faces. 2 weeks ago, Jamie pushed my son. Tyler has bruises. He was hurt. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Torres's face crumpled. And I was angry. I continued. I wanted someone to blame. Someone to punish. Because that's easier than asking why a child would act out in the first place. I looked down at Tyler. But my son, my 7-year-old son, asked a different question. He asked how he could help, how he could understand. And that question changed everything. My voice grew stronger. Jamie isn't violent. He's isolated. He's spent 8 years in a world that doesn't speak his language, and we're punishing him for being frustrated. We're punishing him for being deaf. Mr. Harrison, a board member interrupted. We understand your compassion, but this isn't compassion. This is basic human decency. I gestured to Rebecca. This woman taught my son sign language in 3 days. 3 days. And you're telling me a school full of trained educators can't do the same? It's not that simple, Principal Anderson said. Yes, it is. I looked directly at the board members. I'm offering to fund everything. Training, interpreters, resources, whatever Jamie needs, and whatever future students like him will need. But only if he stays. The room erupted in murmurs. And if he doesn't stay? A board member asked. Then I pull Tyler. And I'll make sure every parent in this district knows that Riverside Elementary expelled a child for being deaf. Tyler tugged on my sleeve. Dad, can I say something? I looked down, surprised. You want to speak? He nodded. I lifted him up so everyone could see. Tyler's small voice somehow carried across that entire room. Jamie is my friend. And friends don't give up on each other. Then my 7-year-old son looked directly at Jamie and signed slowly, carefully, the words Rebecca had taught him. Friend, FREVR. Jamie's eyes went wide. Tears spilled down his cheeks. His hands moved, shaking, signing back. THANK, YU. Mrs. Torres broke down completely, sobbing into her hands. The board didn't even need to deliberate. They voted unanimously. Jamie stayed. 3 months later, I stood in the back of Tyler's classroom during their morning circle time. 22 second graders sat in a circle, and every single one of them signed good morning to each other. And to Jamie. Jamie sat right in the middle, surrounded by friends, signing animatedly about something that made the whole group laugh, silently together. Tyler caught my eye and waved. I waved back, my throat tight with emotion I didn't try to hide. Rebecca appeared beside me. You're here. Every Friday, I said. Just like I promised. She smiled. He's thriving. Because of you. Because of all of us, she corrected gently. Because God put us all in the right place at the right time, and we finally paid attention. I watched my son, watched Jamie, watched a classroom full of children who'd learned that being different wasn't something to fear. It was something to celebrate. Rebecca, I said quietly, I need you to know something. You're not the help. You're not the housekeeper. You're family. And I need you to know that I see you. Really see you. Finally. Her eyes filled with tears. I know, she whispered. I already knew. Tyler and Jamie ran over together, both talking excitedly in sign and speech at the same time. Dad, can Jamie come to our house for dinner tonight? Tyler asked. Jamie signed hopefully, his face bright with expectation. Of course he can, I said. Rebecca translated, and Jamie's whole face lit up like the sun. Mrs. Torres appeared in the doorway, still in her work uniform, but smiling wider than I'd ever seen. Thank you, she said to me, for everything. I shook my head. Your son taught mine what real courage looks like. We should be thanking you. And as we all walked out together, me, Tyler, Rebecca, Jamie, and Mrs. Torres, I realized something profound. I'd spent 3 years building walls around my heart, thinking that's what grief required. Thinking that staying isolated kept me safe from more pain. But God had sent Rebecca to show me the truth. Healing doesn't come from building walls. It comes from building bridges. From reaching across the silence to find connection. From seeing people really seeing them and choosing to try. Sometimes the people we think we're saving end up saving us instead. And sometimes, God's greatest miracles come wrapped in the smallest packages. A 7-year-old boy who refused to let his friend stay silent, a housekeeper who loved like Jesus loved, and a deaf child who taught an entire school what it means to truly listen. That's when silence speaks the loudest, when we finally stop talking long enough to hear what the heart is saying. And what it's saying is always the same. We all just want to belong. We all just want someone to try. We all just need love to build a bridge across whatever divides us. That's the miracle. That's the message. That's the truth that changes everything.